Welcome to Intuitive Astrology with Molly McCord. Thank you so much for joining me today as we take a look at the astrological energies from May 21st until May 28th. Here we go. Things are ramping up and it's time for a fresh take, new solutions, and an intentional reset as we close out May. But now we are fully in Gemini season. We have a lot to discuss this week where the energies are more vibrant, dynamic, and active, including a very busy Mercury, Saturn entering Aries, and an uplifting Gemini New Moon. So we'll be covering all of that and more in today's show. Now, the sun has moved into Gemini, changing up the energy from Taurus season. Taurus is fixed earth, where we stabilize and simplify what's important to us. There's a desire to be productive, focused, determined, understanding what is crucial and needed at this time, and then allowing yourself to get the job done and stay the course. In Taurus season, we can also get a handle on what's real, what's true, and what matters to you. But now as we enter into Gemini season, there is more of a vibrant energy in the air, a sense of, okay, now I want to talk about it and share what I am considering, what I've been moving through, what's been on my mind. The Gemini energy is also where we desire to look at, well, what are the other possibilities here? What would be some other solutions? What new information do I need? What else could I try? Where would there be some potentials here that would help expand this and open it out of what I thought it had to be? So when we have Gemini energy plus a very active Mercury, and Mercury is the ruler of Gemini season, you could have a willingness now to venture into new territory, experiment, and lighten up the energy. That Gemini desire to have variety is also strong at this time, especially when there can be short-term endeavors. Gemini is the sprinter. It's a fast-moving sign that wants to try something quickly and then move on to the next choice. So the ability to adapt and stay open in your willingness is going to serve you well now. Perhaps something that you were previously rigid about, or you didn't want to change, or you didn't want it to alter, is now going to soften, and you're going to have that sense of, well, why not? Let's just give it a go, give it a try, and have some fun with what can open up. Gemini energy is more of that free-spirited, youthful essence of curiosity and lightheartedness. And because we're moving into a very active Gemini season, you could also find that you're less willing to stay committed to something. You could have that desire to be free, to move about, and just follow where the day takes you. But there is more of a seriousness with the energy as Saturn enters Aries, bringing our attention to what we want to begin and start. Plus, the Gemini planets are going to be trining Pluto in Aquarius, which means you do have to think long term. You do have to be aware of the energy movement, where it's headed, where it's going, and what the bigger picture might lead to. So this brings in more power and awareness to Gemini intentions. So do keep that in mind, especially as we're moving through the first week, even 10 days of Gemini season, because what's bubbling up here might be very interesting and might be something that gets you moving and going, but there are more consequences and intentionality built in to Gemini season this year. So keep in mind the power of your words, of what you're saying and stating. Stay aware of your mind and what you're focusing on, how your mind is operating right now, and really taking a step back to be that observer of the mind and saying, do I really want to spend my time thinking about this? Is this where I want to invest my mental energy right now? What am I focusing on, and is it important? Does it really matter? Or am I just swimming in details that are inconsequential? We're also being guided to understand more perspectives, diversity, and perceptions in the world at large, and to remain open to that level of processing, meaning understanding that critical thinking is an asset right now, as well as asking questions, gathering more information, inviting people to share more, tell me more. How did you arrive at that conclusion? Or I'd love to hear more about that topic. Even making sure to verify facts, data, evidence, understanding that people can say a lot, they can talk a big game, but is it real? Is it true? Is it based in anything that is factual? Because the other side of strong Gemini energy is playing both sides, being a trickster, and being a manipulator of the mind, confusion, saying one thing and doing another, giving information over here that contradicts information over there. So the Gemini energy, because it's about duality and it's an air sign, which is focused on communications, information, and mental processing, there can be a deeper desire right now to get to the truth, to understand true intentions and motivations, to hold someone accountable for the words they say or the stories they tell, to question narratives, and to consciously focus on what is really being expressed. Master manipulators can be very good communicators, and so can truth tellers. And so it's being more discerning around the intentionality of what is being said, as well as going into your own deeper thought process when something feels off or something feels on, something feels accurate. So what I feel we're also doing during this particular Gemini season, as the Gemini energy interacts with Pluto and Neptune, is that we are breaking out of mind control. And by mind control, I mean how we have been programmed to be very strong mentally in navigating our lives, that we place a lot of emphasis on what do I think about that? What am I seeing? What's coming up here that I am heavily focused on or invested in? And am I overly focused on the mind and my own mental perceptions to my own detriment, where I'm not hearing the gut instinct, or I'm not trusting my intuition and that something feels off? Am I only allowing my mind to run the show here? Or am I accessing all of my energy fields, all of my brilliant systems to trust what's coming up through those messages? So when I say mind control, you might immediately think of how information is used to control the masses, or maybe you're thinking of it in terms of propaganda or certain messaging that is given. And so there are various ways of defining mind control, but what I mean specifically in this instance is questioning how much we each allow our minds to control us when we are so much more than that, when we are so much more than just our brains and our internal neurological processing. So yes, you could think of mind control and go right to MK Ultra, but I'm looking at this as more of how can we ask deeper questions of how we're using our consciousness and our energy to align with our soul journey and our soul path, where we are calling in access to more of our beautiful gifts that also includes the power of our intelligence and our minds, but is not overly reliant upon it. And I believe that's going to be one of the big themes here in Gemini season, where we're going to have access to deeper understandings around how we are using our minds every day, the communications we take in, the information we seek, the questions we ponder, and what we allow to spin and move through our brains. So again, it comes back to being internally curious, which is a great way to use the Gemini energy. Is this what I want to think about? Is this the book I want to really check out from the library? Does this topic serve me? Does this information support me? And all of this is going to be moving much faster here as Gemini season unfolds. So let's get into the day-by-day transiting aspects of this next week, where we certainly have a lot going on. On May 22nd, we have Venus in Aries making the exact trine to Mars in Leo at 16 degrees. Now, this trine has been in effect for the whole month of May, and it's helping to revitalize our spirit, our energy, and our confidence after those intense intense retrogrades that both Mars and Venus were in. And their retrogrades each started in fire signs, took us back into water signs where we had to do some emotional digging, understanding, and really tap into more of our unconscious self. Then as the planets re-entered fire signs, there was a new lease on life available, a new sense of this is what I want now. And so when Venus and Mars are in a trine, this is supportive developmental energy for moving towards what you desire and what you want, especially in the fire signs. So this could be a time period where you feel like you finally have recovered from those retrograde energies. You could have a sense of now there is movement, now things are clicking and moving forward, and it can also bring about fresh inspiration for what you want and how you're going to go about creating it and obtaining it. So this fire is alive now, especially as they connect at 16 degrees of Aries and 16 degrees of Leo. And you could have that burst of, yes, I've got it. This is it. This is what I want. This is what aligns for me now. On the same day, on May 22nd, that Sun in Gemini sextiles Neptune in Aries at 1 degree for the first time in our lives. So here we have the Sun in Gemini, what you are thinking about, understanding, communicating, processing, interacting with supportive incoming developments from Neptune in Aries. This can open up an idea and move it into fresh territory. This is where you might feel a release valve on something you've been spinning in or trying to figure out. Here comes Neptune in Aries to lighten the load and move it into a different beginning point that you couldn't have imagined previously. You could have the seed of a great concept or idea. You could feel newly inspired around something that you didn't see it as possible, you didn't know how it would work, but Neptune brings in otherworldly potentials. And in Aries, it's a new start, and it's meant to align with a clarity of who you are now. This could also be an expansion in your intuition, where you could feel that you're accessing a whole new level of communications and informations. The sextile between the Sun in Gemini and Neptune in Aries is meant to move us out of the limitations of the mind and couple it with the broad vision of your intuition, all right? So this could be a really lovely opening here. There's a lot of creative flow on May 22nd. There is also inspired movement here, and again, a sense of I'm finally getting this. I'm finally breaking free and seeing what I didn't see before. Then we move to May 24th, which has a lot going on in a single day. On May 24th, the Sun in Gemini trines Pluto retrograde in Aquarius at 3 degrees. Mercury in Taurus is conjunct Uranus in Taurus at 27 degrees. And then Saturn enters Aries at 11:35 p.m. Eastern. So keep in mind, Saturn might enter Aries on May 25th for you, depending on your time zone. So this Saturday has some powerful energies and breakthroughs occurring. This is where there can be some really clear developments around what you want to say yes to and commit to, where you want to move ahead, and maybe even start something brand new in your life. I mean, it is that big. Of course, it's not going to be that way for everyone, but the energy signature here is about starting something fresh and different, shifting out of what you thought it had to be, and understanding that the universe is moving you into a new paradigm of perceptions. And so I feel that there could be some very big breakthroughs around what you want or need next. There can be powerful developments that start to align and come through. There's a lot of energy and activity here. Now, we want to also take a look at how on May 25th, Mercury then enters Gemini and makes an immediate sextile to Saturn in Aries at 0 degrees. All of these transiting aspects happening at once means it's a big time for communications, ideas, projects, new ventures, self-expression, communications, new beginnings, and perhaps even understanding what to do with anything that's been stalled, delayed, or canceled. So when I look at these transiting aspects, May 24th, May 25th, and then even May 26th and May 27th, they all relate to the same dance between planets in the early degrees of Gemini interacting with Neptune and Saturn in the early degrees of Aries, interacting with Pluto retrograde in Aquarius at 3 degrees. Okay, so 3 areas of your chart. Let me just summarize it. 3 areas of your chart are going to be syncing up and aligning here into next week. So you want to identify where you have 0 and 1 degrees of Aries in your chart. You want to identify where you have 3 degrees of Aquarius in your chart. And then we're looking at the first 6 degrees of Gemini. And that's because the Gemini New Moon is going to be at 6 degrees. So you want to identify the 3 houses where you have these degree points. 0 to 1 degrees of Aries, 3 degrees of Aquarius, and the first 6 degrees of Gemini. Because again, they are all creating powerful new connections, important communications, breakthroughs, perhaps, and anything you've been wanting to say yes to or begin. And it's just a starting point because the outer planets are going to continue to interact here in these areas of your chart, specifically those early degrees of Aries and early degrees of Aquarius. But here comes the Gemini influence with all the possibilities, how to do it, how to move ahead, what to say, what could be explored, what is worth considering, discussing, talking about. And this makes communications more important. Also, there is a maturity that's needed here. And that maturity is because Saturn is entering Aries and is asking you to be clear in what you need and who you are, and then to speak from that place. So if you need to express a truth, if there's something you need to write out or an important conversation that needs to be had, this is the energy for it. If you have an idea that you want to put into motion, you want to do something with it, well, this is a new day dawning, and it might be apparent to you around what will work and what will not work. I feel that it's important to take this seriously. It also means that when we bring in the strong Gemini influence, there is the responsibility of not saying too much, not over speaking or over explaining, knowing when to listen and when to ask questions, when to gather more information so that you're not making assumptions and you're not going off on a false direction that won't lead to anywhere worthwhile. There are going to be powerful announcements, disruptions, and breakthroughs as well. When communications are amplified, there's a lot more information coming out and being revealed, especially as the planets in Gemini are going to trine that Pluto retrograde in Aquarius. So I just lumped together multiple days of the week because they're all creating a very similar song, if you will. They're all interacting in a harmonious way. This also means there's more movement that's going to be occurring. Here in the US, it's a long holiday weekend. It's Memorial Day weekend, which typically kicks off the summer activities. And so that certainly coincides with this Gemini movement, as well as more going on, more people wanting to travel, to be on the road, to do staycations, to drive their cars, to see family, to have celebrations. You get the idea. All of that is occurring at this time as it does every year. But here in 2025, there is more significance and more intentionality that's in play. It feels like there is more coming together behind the scenes that will also be apparent. I feel this as dreams being realigned. A new dream is rising up. A new potential that is calling to you is getting louder, and the communications around it are happening perhaps faster and clearer. And by communications, I don't simply mean by your friends or family and everyone who's on your phone. I mean the communications you have with your soul directing you to what you're here to experience in this chapter of your soul growth. And so more people are going to be connecting with new starts that light them up and inspire them. You could feel it physically moving you. Something like, I've got to do this. I've got to go here, or I've got to say this. I have to try this. There's a willingness in the air, a sense of desire for what you want and to move towards it. And again, I feel like it's going to be lighting people up, and it takes us out of the typical questioning of what we would go through. Meaning, let's say you have an idea for a trip. Well, there are certain things you're going to research or look into. There's things you're going to need time to process, right? To figure out the budget. What are the details? What's the best time to travel? Which airline? When do I want to leave? When do I want to arrive? All those factors, right? All of that is very Gemini. But with this particular influence, there's a sense of, I'm going to try this. I'm going to go for this. It's going to align. I don't need to overly concern myself with the specifics. Yes, I need to know what time the plane leaves, but I also understand there's a bigger picture around why I'm doing this or why I'm being called to something. And you could feel that surge. There's an energy surge here that's moving you forward. And with the trine to Pluto in Aquarius, there is that next part of yourself you're meant to meet. Pluto in Aquarius connects us to our future self frequencies and to more of the life dreams that we can experience, but we have to be willing to go for it and to trust when the energy aligns. I feel like there is an element here of divine timing unfolding over this next week. Divine timing for people to make moves, do the thing, say what's on their mind. There's a sense of, I don't want to hold this back anymore, or I don't want to sit with this. I'm ready for new energy, and I am the new energy. There's an ownership here around a new sense of who you want to be and how you want to show up in the world that moves you forward. So all of this is very dynamic. And of course, it depends on your own natal chart, because we're talking about early degrees of the fire signs and the air signs. And so if in your chart you have early degrees of Aries, Leo, and Sagittarius, and or early degrees of Gemini, Libra, and Aquarius, you are really feeling this. This is your time to try the new thing, to trust the energy and be open to what shows up for you. This is active energy. It's doing, moving, being there, expressing yourself. It's like this full participation in life. And so that could even be something you feel changing over this next week with these transits. You could have a sense of, yeah, I'm ready for a new chapter. I'm ready to be this next version of who I came here to be in this lifetime. And I just feel it so strongly that I'm seeing this visual of some fears dissolving or resistance dissolving, almost like the previous stories that have been very active or played into your soul's journey. Those stories are fading out. They are moving away. And I see that that's part of how these energies in Gemini are gaining a new life force. Now, that's really going to be strong with the Gemini New Moon on May 26th as well. But overall, there could be this rising need here to move ahead and no longer allow previous stories, narratives, details, experiences, whatever it might be, to determine what you're going to do next, right? It's like, I'm choosing today. I'm choosing to live from today's energy. Understanding, yes, where I've been, what I've been through, maybe parts of your own experiences that have been very significant in becoming who you are. But Saturn entering Aries, these energies in Gemini, the strong connection to Pluto in Aquarius, the universe is signaling to you to make choices based on who you are now and the direction you are headed in your life that matters now. And again, I'm seeing that maybe the over-processing calms down or the needless internal chatter fades out. There's a new consciousness arriving, and it could really be lighting you up and giving you a new lease on life. So know that all of these transiting aspects here over this next week could each each be delivering important insights for you to beautifully welcome and understand, maybe even acknowledge, okay, I wasn't ready before, or I wasn't ready last week, but now I am. I'm feeling a change, and I'm feeling this energy that is ready for me to say yes to the next chapter, to a new version of myself, and to the next beginning point that is being seeded at this time. So again, you're going to feel it more personally if you have planets and points in early degrees of fire signs and early degrees of air signs. Now, I did a previous podcast episode for you back on May 5th around Saturn entering Aries. And this is a big deal because not only is Saturn changing signs only for 3 months here in 2025, but Saturn is moving to 0 degrees of Aries, which is a world point. And this brings more significance to world leaders, world developments, what's happening that's meant to move us forward collectively. Saturn is about, of course, the 3D, our physical world, what we build, what we invest in, and how we show up. I feel too like for many people, you could have a sense of rebirth in who you are now, but we're also going to notice that on the global stage as well. So just be aware of what is happening whenever a planet is at 0 degrees of Aries. Of course, this includes Neptune that has been at 0 degrees of Aries, is now at 1 degree of Aries. But an example of that would be the previous Pope leaving and a new Pope arriving, which is very Neptunian. So Saturn at 0 degrees of Aries could signify a big change in world leadership, in those who are decision makers, in those who have a lot of responsibility. New commitments can be announced. Important goals and agenda matters are more prominent. We can also see the rise of important new leaders, new guides, elders, and mentors. Now, Saturn doesn't move very fast in Aries this year. And so Saturn is going to be at this world point of 0 degrees until June 9th. That's an important date because that's also when Jupiter enters Cancer, and Jupiter will be at 0 degrees of Cancer, which is also a world point. All of the cardinal signs at 0 degrees are world point energies. And then Saturn is going to return to 0 degrees of Aries the middle of August 16th until September 1st. So this tells us that the world is moving into important new phases and directions, that world changes are going to be bigger and more pronounced. We are moving towards some key moments and crescendos. Okay, so that's going to be unfolding here over the next few months. And I will be doing a podcast episode for you on Monday discussing the energies of June. June is a big deal in astrology, all right? So I will give you more of a heads up on that in Monday's show. But it's important to note that Saturn entering Aries this weekend is going to elevate these beginning themes and make them more real. Now, I know that Saturn often gets a bad rap because we think of challenges, delays, hardships with Saturn, but because Saturn is about the real world, the 3D, Saturn relates to what you create in your life. Saturn is a key component to manifesting. It's about what do you want to experience in your reality, and to take it seriously, to work with what you've got and understand the power of energy in how you create and manifest based on exactly what you commit to. So this would be a good time to understand, what do I want to commit to in my life? What do I want to manifest next? What do I want to intentionally experience? So when Saturn is at that 0 degrees of Aries starting this Saturday, it's actually a beautiful time to write out your intention list, to understand what you need and what you want now, and to put it all out there. And I feel too that with the energies I've been discussing here, things are moving along faster. This is a faster frequency, and so you might pull in more of what you want to create with greater effortlessness and grace. It might show up quickly, especially if it has your name on it and it's been waiting for you to claim it and to say, yes, that's what I want. So I'm seeing this week as a powerful energy creation vortex, where the more intentional you are with your words and your thoughts, you're going to speak it into reality. You're going to call it in to your personal space faster than ever. And there can also be some awesome developments and breakthroughs that again show up with this divine timing because of the alignment here in the cosmos. And right as Saturn enters Aries, May 24th, perhaps May 25th, depending on your location, Mercury enters Gemini, has that sextile to Saturn in Aries at 0 degrees, being very strong and powerful in stating what you want. And then we move to May 26th, which is the Gemini New Moon, and that Mercury in Gemini sextiles Neptune in Aries at 1 degree. May 26th is bringing about matters of the mind and harnessing the power of the spoken word. This energy reminds me of the work of Florence Scovel Shinn as well as Louise Hay, and the power of affirmations, our thoughts, and what we focus on. Florence Scovel Shinn wrote a book called Your Word is Your Wand, as well as numerous other books discussing the power of our thoughts and what we say. And in our modern times, we can talk a lot. We read a lot, right? You're getting a lot on your phone, whether it's your text messages, DMs, emails. There's a lot going on that overwhelms our own mental processing. And so I feel that this is going to be a week of not only honing in on what is important to you, but giving that energy, getting rid of the excess, the gossip, the chatter, the needless words or empty thoughts, and harnessing the power of focusing in on this is what I want next in my life, and this is how I want to direct it. The Gemini New Moon is a beautiful, perfect time for this, and it's also trining that Pluto retrograde in Aquarius, helping you see where you can go next, what is opening and flowing, how to approach it, how to get there, and even being willing to do something new and different. Now, I have a video for you on YouTube discussing more specifics of the Gemini New Moon. Again, it's on May 26th at 11:02 p.m. Eastern Time, occurring at 6 degrees of Gemini in your chart. This is where the universe is bringing your attention to a new beginning, as it does every month with our lunar cycle. But there is more weight and intention to this particular new moon, since it is interacting harmoniously with that Pluto in Aquarius, Neptune in Aries, and Saturn in Aries. It is important to write down anything that inspires you or that you want to pursue. With a lot of Gemini energy, we tend to think quickly and the information moves through before we can really grasp it or hold on to it. So do jot down anything that comes up, any ideas you're having, places you want to go. Like if someone mentions a new restaurant to try or something to check out, make sure and get the name of it and jot it down so that you don't forget it later and you have something to reference. When the energies are this busy and active, we also have to be more intentional in our calming and settling practices. And so it could be, for example, harder to slow down, harder to sleep. There can be a lot more on your mind and spinning around. It can be more tricky even to calm the nervous system and get all of your questions answered. We can be swirling around in these new potentials and options. So grounding practices will be very important as we move through Gemini season. I also think there's going to be a new value on silence, on quiet, on just being present with yourself and listening to your thoughts. Sort of like just turning off anything that is intruding on what you are wanting to think through and process. So not only is grounding going to be more important, but so will boundaries. Boundaries in saying I'm not available right now, or I need an hour to myself, or I'll get back to you next Tuesday with a decision. So be clear in what you need in order to honor what's on your mind and what you're moving through. Don't be afraid to communicate your boundaries, of course, doing so with respect and kindness for others. And then also being able to receive their boundaries and what they might be needing right now. Not only is this energy activating us and moving us into new possibilities in our lives, I feel that there's also here a strong surge in our personal sovereignty, in what you need to do for yourself, in what you've been sitting with or contemplating that deeply honors who you are in this lifetime and the soul journey you signed up for. So I do feel this deeper connection to our sovereignty arising at this time. And you might also be seeing that or feeling that in the people around you, whether those are personal relationships or connections with coworkers, that almost like more people are moving into their own containers, the own fullness of their containers, and needing time and space to be with themselves and to hear what their soul is saying. Your soul could be directing you to something important right now. Again, reiterating a new beginning, a fresh start, and a reset around what you're ready for next, and also what's calling to you in this lifetime. So it's a very interesting dance, right? Because it is the bigger picture energy, but it's landing in our everyday environments, which is Gemini. It's coming through in our minds and our communications. We're sensing it in our personal messages, and we're also feeling the energetic movement of, I need to do this, I need to start this, I need this to be a part of my next path. So overall, obviously I feel this as very positive forward movement, personal enlightenment, and a new lease on life, a new lease on what you're ready for. So Mercury and the Sun are going to be moving through these transits the fastest. And that's what we will be feeling, right? That sense of, okay, I've got to get on with it. I've got to move this forward. But Saturn and Neptune in Aries move slowly. And so does this Pluto retrograde in Aquarius. So there will be a spark of life, breakthroughs and understandings. And then there will be time to contemplate, sit with it, be more intentional around next steps, and clear in what you want to commit to. Basically, I feel like this is going to move us in to the next chapter of 2025. The first 5 months of the year have been a lot. It could have shown you what you're moving away from and completing, what you're healing, the karma that's closing out. A lot of endings have been needed and experienced. But now as we move further into June, July, and August, we're going to have a sense of what those new beginnings are going to be, where the new starts are calling to you, and where it's lining up. So yes, this is a transitional week. There are turnovers here in energies, and I hope you are feeling some kind of fresh start and buoyancy around what to move towards next, especially if 2025 has been choppy. So stay open to what shows up for you over this next week. Maybe it's wild and wacky. Maybe it's what you wanted. Maybe there is an invitation, resource, something coming through that is a beautiful surprise. Keep your intentions high. Stay in those high frequencies that the universe is here to support you in your growth and development, that good news can come about at any moment through any means. And there is a lot of good happening now as well. So when you are in those high frequencies, of course, things can show up that affirm your belief systems and affirm what you want to create in your life. If your birthday is happening here in Gemini season, this is a big year for you. And it's important to look at what is occurring in your natal chart as well as what is happening in your solar return chart, because there's going to be a lot more movement and energy supporting your Gemini planets. And I know this is going to be a great thing because the Gemini energies have been in it and been through it. I mean, you just have been through Saturn in Pisces squaring Gemini. We've had a number of planets retrograde in Gemini in recent years. Maybe you even felt overlooked at times, like you weren't being listened to or you weren't being taken seriously. Well, now there are openings here around what you're ready to teach, share, study, communicate, right, what you want to do next, where you want to travel. There's a lot of vibrancy helping the Gemini frequencies. So be sure to look at when those are occurring for you so that you can make the most of them. And if your birthday is coming up in Gemini season, be sure and check out what your solar return energies are going to be this year and what is changing for you, what is going to be interesting and dynamic. And this is the case for any planets in Gemini, by the way. But if you have your sun in Gemini, you're going to be feeling it more personally because that sun in Gemini is now ready to develop to the next level. There's an expansion of your consciousness that's unfolding, and you could feel like things are finally clicking and showing up, even when you've been really antsy, really questioning it all, wondering if you should just give up and try something new or something different. Well, this is going to be an important cycle for you with your birthday. So be sure to check out how to read your solar return chart if you need assistance in understanding what that means for you, because your solar return is essentially your blueprint, your energetic blueprint for the next 12 months. And in the program I have for you, I show you exactly how to do that and what the placement of each planet means in your solar return chart. So for example, the moon in your solar return signifies the changes you're going to be moving through in this year. Mars in Leo and Venus in Aries are going to reveal what you are starting that's fresh and new, where the energy is syncing up and perhaps aligning, especially for relationships and what you want to create. During Gemini season this year, we have all planets direct except for Pluto, which is retrograde. So that means this is a year where you could get ahead and have more movements that are just easier and faster moving. So be sure to check out how to read your solar return chart. And this is also designed to be something you return to every year, where you buy it once and then you come back next year and look at what your solar return chart says for next year and each year after that. I will put the link below the podcast in case that would help you at this time, as well as take you into more astrology knowledge and understanding. So overall, we are entering into a very big week. It's important to be intentional with what you say, what you do, what you commit to. It's also a time to honor what your new boundaries are and what commitments you want to make. I feel that this is going to set the stage here for our next level dreams and manifestations. And I hope you get some beautiful insights and messages that give you life, that excite you and move you forward. So as always, wishing you a beautiful journey here over this next week. Be sure to check out my YouTube channel with that Gemini New Moon astrology chart interpretation. And I hope that assists you in understanding what is coming through for you with this new moon. As always, I'll be back every Monday and Wednesday for a new podcast episode. And I look forward to connecting with you as we continue our astrological conversation here. Take good care. Happy new moon. Happy Saturn in Aries. And I'll see you back here soon.